Okay, so in today's video, I basically have a visual representation of the current tier list for Dragon Ball Legends, and it does thankfully include some of the newer units in the game, which obviously is a good sign because it's just showing us that they are adding new units that are good consistently, and it doesn't necessarily mean that you need extreme or you don't need sparking units to have some of the more top tier units in the game. So I'm gonna gradually move up the list and kind of give my own opinions, because before I would just read off a Reddit post, and despite that Reddit post sharing a lot of my own opinions, I feel like it's just best if I do it in this particular way. So in the number 4 spot or row, we have Frost, Final Form, Frost. Well, that is Final Form Frost. Final Form Frost, First Form Frieza. We have Third Form Frieza, as well as the Nappa and the Tien. And I think it would actually be extremely helpful if I go over to Legends DBZ space, just to give you guys a bit of a rundown on what the characters can do. And of course, I don't want to be spending too much time on this. I think I'm going to pick out the newer units, because I would imagine that by now you guys know what the older ones can do. So Third Form Frieza causes enemies to receive 35% more blast damage. Great, like just right off the bat. Purple base blast attack during battle, 17%. So that's gonna, like, if you have him just for his Z ability entirely, he's going to be giving a massive increase to the Vegeta, who is already incredible with the blast attacks. 20% to blast damage inflicted against tag regeneration. Deals major pierce damage. Causes enemies to receive 10% more blast damage for 15 counts. 40% chance to inflict bleed. 20% to Iron Strike damage for 20 seconds. Now we have the First Form Frieza, who causes he gives a 45% blast damage increase for 15 counts. He gives a 17% increase to Blue Strike attack. 15% blast damage inflicted against Saiyans. Deals major pierce damage. Causes enemies to receive 10% more blast damage. And he can immobilize the enemy like Final Form Frieza. Now, with Frost, causes enemies to receive 30% more strike and blast damage. 17% blue base and strike. 17% blues base strike and blast attack during battle. 15% to strike damage inflicted against super warriors. Of course, this includes Krillin and such. Deals major explode damage. Causes enemies to take 10% more blast damage for 15 counts. Immobilizes enemy and inflicts poison. I think that out of the bunch there, though, I think they are all pretty solid, to be honest. Like, don't get me wrong, Nappa and the Tien are good as well, but the Final Form Frieza, or the Third Form Frieza, you don't even have to, like, use in your main squad. You can just use him to boost Vegeta, but obviously if you do use him as part of your squad, you're going to be giving crazy increases to the Vegeta, of course. First Form Frieza, also fairly solid, given the increase to the blue types. I believe it's blue types anyway. And then we have Final Form Frost, that gives an increase to strike and blast damage, which is going to help out Broly. So, incredible units all around. Main uses are going to be the Z abilities, though. That is a strong fact. Now, we have the Piccolo, the Vegeta, and the Yamcha, who are new units. And just to give a quick rundown of what they can do, the Piccolo is basically the Sparking Piccolo, but a bit weaker. The Vegeta is basically the Sparking Vegeta, but a bit weaker. And then the Yamcha, I feel like, is actually surprisingly good. On first sight, he wasn't, he was okay. But 45% to strike damage, 17% to base blast attack, 45% to own special arts power move from battle starts, 50% to own damage sustained from self-destruct. So if a unit uses self-destruct against the Yamcha, he takes 50% more damage, which is kind of bad, but it obviously is there for a reason. Major slice damage, 10% to own critical rate for 15 count, 50% chance to inflict bleed, 20% to own strike damage for 20 count. So he obviously does rely a lot on strike attack. He by no means has the highest strike attack in the game, but he does have a balanced strike and blast attack. But he does have relatively low strike defense and blast defense, which is something that you do want to work on in the soul boost system, and it's something that a few people I feel like are gonna overlook, because even the like hero units are incredible with soul boost increases, and they ultimately do make a massive difference. Pan, who is a sparking unit that I felt was the best at the time, or one of the best units at the time, but obviously looking good on paper and actually performing in game is entirely different. So she does belong here. Raditz is good as well, but mainly there for that Z ability. And the Goku as well, mainly there for that Z ability. Now we have Super Saiyan Goku, Piccolo, Spirit One Goku, as well as the Ginyu. So the new unit here, of course, is the Ginyu. His standout feature is going to be the body change. It works in an interesting way though. So he increases the Ginyu Force health by 17%. 20% to blast damage inflicted when tagged Frieza Force is a battle member. Deals major explode damage, causes enemies to take 15% more strike damage. Causes enemies to take 20% more blast damage. Deals major pierce damage, inflict bleed. Now the way that the body change works is switch to your opponent punches himself, and then you switch back to the Ginyu. So you don't actually change bodies. But his main utilities are going to be in that body change for sure. But I feel like the Ginyu Force team overall is actually pretty solid, because they share a ton of Z abilities with each other and such, which is of course going to drastically increase the overall performance of the team. But of course, if you want to rely on his team entirely, you kind of have to get the other Ginyu Force members to level 1000, which kind of sucks because they are just heroes. But like I said before, if you give them enough soul boost increases, they are going to be decent, but it definitely would be a bit better if they were extreme units. And now, of course, at the top of the list, main man Broly is still there. Vegeta, Gohan, Piccolo, as well as the Frieza. Now, the thing about the the thing about the Frieza and the Gohan is that they just simply do not fit on these teams, and they do not have any good equipment. Broly now has very good equipment, which drops from playing PvP, so you have more of an incentive to play PvP. Gohan at face value, absolutely incredible. Crazy high potential for strike damage. He has one of the highest strike attacks in the game. 50% to strike damage inflicted, or 15 timer count. 14% to mixed Saiyan blood health, or mixed blood Saiyan health. 20% to strike damage inflicted when three battle members are left. 35% to strike damage inflicted when a Piccolo is dead. Deals major impact damage. 20% to own strike damage for 15 count. 20% strike and blast damage for 20 count. So his pros: crazy high potential strike damage, just crazy increases all around. But his cons are, doesn't have that great of equipment available to him. He holds blast cards, which sucks massively, and a lot of you may not be familiar with this, but certain characters, hold certain cards, and this is basically a nerf, because if Gohan held strike cards, it would drastically increase his usability, or is that even a word? It would basically increase the use that you have for him. But because he only holds blast cards, it's hard for him to be fully optimized. You kind of have to make sacrifices here and there to use units that hold strike cards primarily. For example, the Piccolo holds a strike and blast card. Super Saiyan Goku, strike cards. Piccolo, strike cards. Of course, the Vegeta holds blast cards, so you do have to make a bit of a sacrifice there. But it definitely does suck that the Gohan doesn't hold blast cards. At least let him hold a strike and a blast card. But no, they just gave him 2 blast cards for whatever reason, which kind of sucks. So right now, Gohan doesn't necessarily have a team. Of course, once they release units like Trunks and Super Saiyan 2 Gohan, he is going to have way more uses there. But for now, he is still a top tier unit. Of course, he is in the #1 spot. But he kind of just doesn't have that spot in the team right now. And the same applies to Final Form Frieza. Incredible card all around, but ultimately just lacks in being involved in the team. But individually, these yellow units are definitely very good. So, draws the ultimate arts card, Death Catastrophe. 19% to yellow strike and blast defense. 20% to strike damage inflicted against Saiyans. 15% to damage inflicted against Frieza Force. Effects is not applied to character Frieza. Why does he do more damage against Frieza Force members? Deals major explode damage. Causes enemies to take 15% more strike damage for 15 counts. Immobilizes enemy and causes enemies to receive 15% more strike damage. Deals major explode damage. So, like the Gohan he is, he kind of pushes the whole strike value, but of course, the Gohan is going to be a bit stronger on that front. So Vegeta is part of that. So he hard counters him. I thought he was part of that. That is interesting. So the Final Form Frieza is a hard counter for the Vegeta. That may honestly warrant you running him. And I think he holds strike cards, I'm not too certain. Which is a good thing because he's not, you know, over-reliant on them. Why do the cards not pop up on here? Kind of sucks, but... I'm pretty certain he holds a combination of both, but... Again, I'm not necessarily too sure. That was the list. Again, shout out to Game Press because I'm pretty certain that this is where it's from. But there we go. Hope you enjoyed. Leave a like, all that good stuff. Let me know your thoughts, and peace.